Hello, everybody. This is our vocoder project for the hackillinois 2022. In this case, as mentioned, we did a vocoder. The way vocoders work is it takes two input samples and plays one almost kind of in the form of another. What's on screen right now is a diagram that shows the algorithm. This is a very simple version of how vocoders are done. But it starts with two input signals. Here they are notated as modulator and carrier. For me, it's a little easier to think of the modulator more as what your input signal is. So in the case of what our project has done, is this is a input song and the carrier is a square wave signal. The next step that you do is once you have these inputs is you put them through the same sort of bandpass filters. Bandpass filters filter out all the frequency content of the inputs except for a very certain range. So for example, we might have the first bandpass filter be from 100 hertz to 1 kilohertz, and then the second one from 1 kilohertz to 2 kilohertz, and the third one from 3 to 4, and so on and so forth. Basically what this means is that the output of each bandpass filter is we have the components of the input that was in that specific frequency region. So for example, if we had a 500 hertz sine wave, right? If we put that into a bandpass filter where the borders of it are 200 and 400 hertz, we're not going to hear anything because that sine wave is purely at 500 hertz. But if that band was shifted to be from 300 to 600 hertz, well, we'd get the entire sine wave back because all the sine wave lies within that region. Now, the next step that we do is we have these envelope detectors here. What these do is they basically get the energy content of the input signal at each specific frequency region. Basically what that means is it's how strong is that signal in this region. While the bandpass filter tells you the actual component, it's like it's as if you took the original input signal and just kind of cut out a lot of things. This envelope detector tells you how strong is it in there. Now, the next step is once you have this envelope detector and you have these bandpass filters of the carrier, is you multiply the corresponding inputs together. That's what you see here in these little triangles. Basically what that does is it changes how the carrier bandpass filter outputs, it changes how those sound. It changes it so that the energy of that is matching that of the modulator's input. What does that mean? Well, in the case of our square wave example, it means that this square wave is going to be played and morphed such that it sounds like the input song. The reason why we don't hear just like a clean sine wave and everything just kind of sounds like that one note is because square waves have energy content spreading throughout the higher frequencies at harmonics. So once you have all this information and you have each frequency and you kind of morph it to sound the same as the modulators at the same energy levels, when you add them all up and you add up all those frequency regions together, you should end up with a final output that sounds like the carrier or the square wave in this case, that's been morphed to sound like the modulator or the song in this case. So over here is the code that we use to implement this. It is all done in Python. After we do the standard importing all libraries and defining variables that we use, we first end up defining a couple functions to help us with filtering. All this does is it takes an input signal and it bandpass filters it given a certain frequency range. The next step that we do is we go ahead and read in the audio file. In this case, it's just a WAV file that we end up turning into a NumPy array. After that, we go ahead and make the bins. Basically what these bins are is they are the boundaries of the bandpass filters. So we can see that the first bin is at 100 hertz. And then the second one is going to be at 1,000 and then 2,000 and so on and so forth, up to however many we decide to do. In this case, that number is 12. Next step is we generate and we filter that carrier. So that's basically going to be creating this carrier that we can see in the diagram and the outputs of each of these bandpass filters. So all we have to do for that is we generate that square wave that was mentioned, and then we just apply those filters using those functions that we defined earlier. Then we do the same filtering that we did with the filters, but with the audio. We use the exact same filters with the exact same cutoffs to make sure we have proper matching. From there, we go ahead and apply that envelope detector that was mentioned. This is how we get that energy content at each frequency of the input sound. From there, we go ahead and do that multiply. That's that little triangle part here in the diagram. We do that multiply, we get the morph, we add them all together here, and then we go ahead and we play them. So to best show how this sounds, I'm going to first play you the original audio. It should be a song that a lot of people have heard. So, and if not, you'll still be able to very clearly hear the change. So this is the input audio. So that's going to be what's going to be morphed in the form of the carrier. So next I'm going to go ahead and play the carrier so you can see what it's going to be more reminiscent of afterwards. So that's just a square wave that you can hear kind of like a little grittiness to it. That's basically what shows the extending frequency bends off to the higher frequency. So now, assuming everything went well, what we're going to hear here at the output of the vocoder is we're just going to hear the music but it's going to be sounding a lot more as if it was being played through, almost like it's through the carrier. So you can hear that everything is pitch shifted a lot lower. This is because the actual song originally was a much higher frequency than the original carrier frequency. You can also hear some of this kind of like wispy higher note parts. The reason why we have those is because that square wave has components at higher frequencies. Most notably in this case is at 880 hertz. What that's going to do is it means that at that high frequency, we don't have a lot of energy, but we have enough that we can hear it very clearly when a lot of the music is in that range. So when the music goes really high, we can get like a diminished form of it to kind of match the energy that was in the original carrier. So that was our project, and thank you for listening.